Donald Trump has openly endorsed Jim Jordan to be the next Speaker of the House, but some unlikely Republicans are daring to publicly suggest that that endorsement doesn't mean much. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, as we discussed the other day, Jim Jordan, the least effective lawmaker in Congress, is running for the highest position in Congress. The irony would be rich, except it's the Republican Party, so being the least effective lawmaker, the least responsible governor, the person who wants to govern, is actually probably a badge of honor. It probably increases his chances. I wrote about it at length in a blog on Luke Beasley's website, lukebeasleyShow.com/news. You should check it out. But yeah, Donald Trump is publicly endorsing Jim Jordan for the speakership, which also seems to put the kibosh on the idea that Trump himself would want to be speaker, even though, as we've discussed, current congressional rules forbid him from doing so anyway. Congressman Jim Jordan has been a star long before making his very successful journey to Washington, D.C. Not going to read the whole thing. Bottom line, he will be a great Speaker of the House and has my complete and total endorsement. That is Donald Trump. And again, I imagine that curries quite a bit of favor. Now, in response to this is what Jim Jordan has to say about Trump's endorsement.
I appreciate the president's endorsement. He's the leader of the party. He's going to be our presidential nominee, and I think he's going to be our next president, so I appreciate that. But we're focused also on, the key thing is our colleagues, and I'm talking with we got from Freedom Caucus to people in the middle to committee chairs to Jeff Van Drew, who was Democrat 4 years ago. We got all kinds of across-the-board support, and we're just going to keep working.
So obviously he's really happy about it, and it shouldn't be surprising. I mean, Jim Jordan is the most MAGA of the candidates in the field so far, because the alternative is Steve Scalise, and he's not very good either, but he's nowhere near as openly and outspokenly MAGA as Jim Jordan. Now, what's interesting is Tim Burchard, who we've discussed on this channel before. We've done videos about him. This dude is a far-right loon. He's the representative, or one of the representatives, out of Tennessee, and he said some pretty bonkers things, as Luke or David Pakman would say. And yet, what's interesting is when he's asked about the meaning and the importance of Trump's endorsement of Jim Jordan, he doesn't seem to be too impressed.
Congressman, does Donald Trump's endorsement of Jim Jordan matter to you?
No, ma'am, it doesn't. As I stated, President Trump, he's been kind to me, and he's a friend. He even says my name right. He goes, Burchard. It's kind of funny, really, but because he's one of the few that says my name right. But
we're all working on it. I promise, Congressman.
I'm going to have to. I know it, but you did great. My daughter's a barrel racer, and every time at every arena they say it's something else. I just, if they get Isabel right, I'm happy. I know where she's supposed to be. But
yeah, so that was strange. That part was strange. I didn't see that part. I knew that he had not endorsed, or he didn't think much of the endorsement. That's very strange that he likes Donald Trump so much because Trump pronounces his name properly. It's not a particularly complicated name, Burchard. Now I'm gaslighting myself. But anyway, so we have one of the far-right Republican congresspeople, Tim Burchard, saying, yeah, Trump's endorsement doesn't really mean much. That's interesting. I wonder if he'll actually pay a price for that politically. Now, I just want to follow up with this. Jim Jordan's running. Steve Scalise, who is McCarthy's number 2, he's running. And a guy named Tim Hearn, I think, is potentially going to get in on it as well. He hasn't officially announced at the time of this recording. But they apparently were supposed to have a debate, a televised debate moderated by Fox News. And then it leaked to the press, and then it was canceled. All 3 participants backed out from this public debate, which is really interesting. Makes you wonder why. Apparently, their fellow House members were not impressed by the idea. The very last thing I want to end on is from a Republican who used to be a Republican congressman until just this past year, Adam Kinzinger. This is what he has to say on the notion of electing Jim Jordan to be the Speaker of the House.
What's your word of advice to anybody of the center-right, more moderate conservatives like yourself, trying to decide what to do in terms of the Jordan-Scalise race?
I say hold out, play the game that they played to depose Kevin McCarthy. You will not support somebody like Jim Jordan ever under any circumstance, and particularly because this will be very close to the end of U.S. aid for Ukraine. And there are real impacts to this. And I also got to say, the idea that the Democrats didn't come in and save McCarthy, I can tell you, I served in Congress for 12 years. There wouldn't have been a single Republican vote to save Nancy Pelosi in a similar situation. It is absolutely insane to try to put this dysfunction on the Democrats. This is owned by the march to the far right and the Republican Party, a once great party that has now lost it and is trending towards fascism.
I mean, pretty strong words. He's right, especially that last part at the end when, you do have bad faith actors in the media and certain Republican officials. And I've actually had this debate very recently about who is ultimately responsible for the situation, who's culpable, were there any opportunities missed, the idea that basically Democrats are really the bad actors here, and it's absurd. But yeah, Jim Jordan as Speaker of the House would be a new low for the Republican Party, but they're running out of new lows to hit, so I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. But anyway, we'll see. I imagine Trump's endorsement is going to make quite, it's going to be excellent currency for Jim Jordan in this current climate. But there are 18 Republicans in swing Biden districts, and given the chaos going on, they might be nervous at the prospect of electing somebody like Jim Jordan, who clearly doesn't have a bipartisan impulse at all in his body, who is not interested in helping Ukraine, which does enjoy considerable bipartisan support, certainly isn't going to help getting things past the Senate or President Biden's desk. So who knows? Hopefully it will crash and burn, but we'll see.